Hello, and welcome to Dan and Ian Have Questions. Are you interested in people's unique hobbies, passions, and how it all gets started? Well, you're in the right place. These two, like many of you, know a little bit about a lot and always have questions. Let's sit back, relax, and enjoy as they find out what makes everyone so interesting. This is the Dan and Ian Have Questions podcast.
Hello, everybody. This is Dan and
Ian.
And we have questions. And today what we have is our friend Dale from Colorado. And we wanted to ask him about his collection that he has. It's
giant
vast.
collection.
Giant collection. It's vast. Very, very vast. So why don't you say hi so everybody can hear you?
Hey, this is Dale in Denver.
Dale in Denver. First time caller, long time. Wait.
That doesn't work that way.
No,
Sorry,
no.
buddy.
Hey,
so we're here.
First time to this call, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So we have you on our podcast, and we were just because since we've known you for I don't know probably about a year now, or about that. Your background is something to behold, and it looks almost fake, but when you actually like showed it around, and it's just fascinating how big your collection that you have. You just can't help but ask the question: how did you get into collecting?
Sure. I think when I was a kid, in the early 80s, I was interested in cartoons, and a cartoon that was starting up right when I was really young was He-Man, and the old Filmation He-Man series was really a mind opener as far as fantasy. It wasn't. It didn't look like a farm in Iowa. It was just this other world where all these characters had their own backstories and everything. So. Seeing those toys in the store and having my parents get those for me for birthdays and other special occasions and things. That was my first delve into toy collecting as a kid, I guess.
So what age did you start collecting? Because the show started about, a year after you were born, right? It was
correct. Like right when I was born. So
did you catch it later on?
The earliest I know for a fact that I was a Motu fan was I have a photo of me at my 3rd birthday with my Battle Armor He-Man, which was like my go-to He-Man. So
right.
The toy line started a couple years earlier than that, so I wasn't in on wave 1, like the original version. I was in like the second wave of figures. So the Battle Armor He-Man, that was my go-to He-Man, and then I kind of kept that going throughout the 80s. So when that line was peaking in 1987 and had over $400 million in toy sales. Oh, I'm sorry, 1986. 86 was the peak, and then it died off in 87 to a few $1 million. I was still a fan through the end of that vintage line, and then the live action movie in 87, and then there was a bit of a lull where there wasn't a whole lot available, and then in 1989 they tried to like reboot that animated series.
Was that the New Adventures? Yeah.
Yes.
I was going to ask your opinion on that one.
Yeah, so I got 1 2-pack of New Adventures figures. And the He-Man was he looked so wimpy compared to, what I had.
He didn't seem to look like He-Man, really.
No. Very, very slimmed down, I guess. And the villains were unfamiliar because the show wasn't even available where I was to watch. So I think that was kind of the end for me and Motu. And then Ninja Turtles were on the scene. So we had a garage sale where I pretty much sold off nearly everything for like $0.25 a piece.
Oh no!
And then took took that cash, and the idea was then I was going to be buying up Ninja Turtles, I guess.
So the Motu collection you have now had to be rebuilt. You don't have anything that originally from
very few pieces. So funny enough, I did keep my New Adventures, He-Man, and Slushhead. I kept an Orko that only had one arm, survived from the 80s, so he was a wounded Orko. And then I think the only other figure I held on to was Mosquito, because he has the blood pumping action feature in his chest, and I never saw a toy like that again. So I'm like, all right, this guy stays. But pretty much everything else, went out for a quarter a piece. So after our garage sale, I had $25 or something like that. I don't know how many turtles that could buy around that time.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, I wonder how much they were at the time, each figure.
Right. Probably, $4 or $5. So my collecting, I had a few turtles after that, and then I kind of slowed down as far as physical collecting, and then I would say mid '90s, when Star Wars actually was gearing up for like the special editions, and Hasbro brought back the Power of the Force 2 line. Then I started getting more interested in Star Wars, and when the prequel started up, I was on board with collecting Star Wars by then, and then my Motu collection, and as far as like having a big toy collection, that was probably around maybe like 99, 2000, because basically once I got like my first job where I was punching a time clock and getting like a weekly paycheck, not just like farm jobs where you were helping someone bale hay and they gave you a $20 bill at the end of the day.
Right.
When I had a little more money, I signed up for eBay, and I'm like, okay, all those toys that I sold off a decade ago, I want all of that back and more. Then I was really hardcore into buying up vintage Motu around that time, around 2000, 2001, 2002, and then Star Wars prequels came out, and I just loved like the clone troopers and the battle droids, and I thought that was really neat. So my goal with collecting kind of my focus switched over to Star Wars, and I was like, okay, I need 100 clones, and they need to be fighting 100 droids. So kind of built that collection up for a few years. At the same time, I was collecting Lord of the Rings, because I just loved those movies. They came out when I was in college, and I thought they were great movies, and I thought the toy line was great for that. So that collection was all going on at the same time. And now, 20 some years later, I've got, I don't know, like 2,000 loose figures around me.
Yeah.
Between all these different properties and different franchises, I guess.
So going back, you keep mentioning Farm Boy, and you were born in, was it Iowa? Yep. How long did you live there?
Through college, actually.
Through college, okay.
So other than the semester I worked for Disney down in Florida, I was an Iowa boy until moving to Denver after college.
And you've been there ever since.
Yep.
Now, before the boom of the internet and everything, how were you collecting? Were you going to conventions, or like were you just going to like yard sales, or like?
Yeah, I mean,
KB Toys.
Yeah. I mean, I would hit a KB back in the day, but yeah, garage sales, that was like a great place to pick up some loose figures.
Right.
Back in the day, I don't really hit them too much now because it feels like, you'd go to a lot of garage sales before you find something you're actually interested in now. It seems like now, with Google Images and eBay, people can figure out what they have sitting in the basement. So that way, when they go to put it on Marketplace or for sale somewhere, they know what the heck it is, and they've got a price in mind of what it's worth, I guess.
Oh my
Right,
God.
so-
Yeah. I worked with a guy. He came in one time, one of my supervisors years ago, and he had like a gallon Ziploc bag of his kids' old vintage Star Wars figures. And I was like, oh my God. Oh, that's pretty cool, Mike. What are you going to do with those? And he's
Right,
like,
what's the plan?
I saw them on the internet. I could get about it. I'm like, yeah, you could, or you could,
Sell them to me.
sell them to me.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
a buddy old pal. Come on, what do you say?
Exactly.
Now through the years of collecting, obviously you're married now and you have kids. So what does your wife and kids think about your collection? Is it like kind of like a like a bit of an embarrassment
It's
because
Dad's thing. He keeps it in the
dad
basement.
Dad has more toys than my little cousin who's like 5 years old.
Right. So when my wife and I were dating, I had some toys on display, like in dorm rooms or apartments, or not dorm rooms, like apartments and things. But I had a very small amount of the display of the toys on display. A lot of it was still, in totes back in my parents' house, kind of thing. And then I think the real eye opener was like loading up a U-Haul and moving everything, a few states over and being like, oh, there's more, or when my parents would come to visit and they would just keep bringing out like more and more totes of things,
Right.
I guess.
Yeah.
But as
Get
far
it out
as
of our house, we're done with it.
yeah, as far as the family part of it, I've always been a loose collector. So there's very few things that are still in the box. That was always for me a real kind of a bonding thing. Something I could do with my kids was that we if we bought toys, or even it was toys that Dad picked out, not the kids picked out, we were going to open them, I guess. And
Yeah.
the idea was to have some playtime there, and then with kids, maybe their imagination is a little better than mine because they don't mind mixing up the franchises. So,
Right.
if different scales, 4-inch, 6-inch, they don't care.
Right. I have a follow-up. That's an interesting thing that you bring up. And there's always been a discussion about that, even with the collection groups that I'm even in, is to open or not to open. And some philosophy is that if the box that it's in is like a work of art, don't open it. But then there's some where it's like the earlier Black Series, they look very basic and stripes and everything like that. There's nothing interesting about it, so it's like open them.
Yep.
And so I'm always fascinated what people's thought is about that. With yours, it's like you said that you open it up with your kids and you kind of play it with your kids. But
Yes.
As a collector, what do you think about what's your what end do you
Your
stand
philosophy.
Well,
your
I
philosophy
think I see some mint on card displays and they're really neat. I just that to me that's a different kind of collecting. Like if you appreciate that piece for the whole thing, like how it looks at retail in the box, and that's how you want to display it, and that's what brings you joy, I guess, for your collecting. Go for it. I'm not going to knock that, but for me, it was really a thing to have these loose toys and to be able to display them and to make it a playtime kind of thing. I mean, we would kind of make it like an event when new toys would come in the mail. When from 2009 to 2016 or 17, I believe, Mattel had a subscription service for the Masters of the Universe Classics line. So we knew every month we were going to be getting a sweet box of something.
Well, it was you didn't know what it was going to be.
Well, we knew what it was, but it was kind of like this pent up demand, because a few months out what the figure was going to be, and then when we would know, we've got Ram Man in the mail. Ram Man should be here on Friday, kind of thing. So that can be kind of a fun thing. I think for kids too, is that, hey, that figure that Dad's been talking about for a while, we're going to get to play with that pretty soon. Right. I've seen some really, really neat in the box or carded collections. But that's not something for me, as far as like keeping things mint and, rare, and in a lot of protective cases. Like I've got very few of those kind of things in my display. And also, if they're loose, you can fit way more in your display too.
Exactly.
Yeah, I was about to say that. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and it's like only until recently with the newer Star Wars figures, like I don't care, but it's cool. I like the vintage packaging, and especially like the 50th anniversary stuff. I'm like, oh, that's cool. It's a blown up version of so that kind of stuff. I'm like, yeah, that's cool. But I have boxes of loose stuff I haven't put out around the apartment. But yes, that definitely, there's a lot more space when you take them out. You can pose them. Have a Ninja Turtle fighting some Lord of the Rings figures.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So now that you talk about how you open up the figures with your kids. Now, I don't know the ages of your kids, but are they collectors themselves? And do they collect figures, or do they have other things that they collect?
Sure. When my youngest daughter Ayla was really young, we were kind of into Galactic Heroes, for kids, because 3 3/4, they're more for an older age, I feel like, because they don't always stand up, and they've got all these accessories and things. Galactic Heroes was a scale of figure where it stands up easily. There's no loose accessories. If they need a weapon, it's molded into their hand.
I was going to say, the Galactic Heroes, the little like what were they, squishies or whatever Lucas called them, the squishies.
So we kind of had those as the kids' Star Wars collection when they were younger, but they kind of grew out of that and into their own hobbies, I guess. So. My oldest daughter, she's got a few different collectible things, but she collects things like plush, and she collects books that a lot of novels that she's read over the years. So that's a little bit different. My youngest daughter, she collects horses. Right now, her big thing is Schleich horses. So she did have all different scales of horses, but now her main focus is just this one brand, Schleich, because they're all at the same scale.
So Schleich is like a Hasbro for that horse brand?
Yeah, it's like it's a German company. I think they're most known for Smurfs.
Oh, really?
They have the license for that.
Oh, wow.
So if you ever seen someone's Smurfs collection where it's just, hundreds of little blue guys.
Yeah.
So same kind of idea, but different breeds of horses, I guess, is what she has. So my wife doesn't really have anything collectible, I guess, that you'd put on display. She's got a pretty good wardrobe, I guess. So that can be her collection, is her fashion.
Now the other thing I know you guys have in the house are arcade cabinets.
Sure.
Whose endeavor was that? Is that a mutual thing, or is that another Dale endeavor?
No, that was I think that kind of started off as me, but then we kind of catered it to finding the right kind of games for the whole family. So prior to the pandemic, we had one machine. We had a Ninja Turtles machine. And while that is a great game to have because you can play 4 people at once, our whole family of 4 can all get in there and fight foot soldiers at the same time, it was very limited. It's just that one game. So since then, we've kind of expanded into multi-cades and virtual pinball, and we have a shooting game and Miss Pac-Man now as well. So. Now there's a whole room of games that the whole family can play at once, and I think we had a room where it was you'd come in the front door and it would just be kind of a sitting room where we'd had couches and lounge chairs and stuff, but we never had a TV there, so we weren't in there for entertainment very much. It was just more of a sitting room, kind of boring. So we kind of redid that over the pandemic, and now we get a lot more use out of that room. Like, I think now when a guest comes into our home, or a repairman or something, like, they know they come in and this is a fun place to be, I guess.
Yeah, that's funny that you say that because like we if we have like, for example, like the exterminator or whatever that comes into our house, and obviously they have to check every room, and then actually the last time that we had somebody in our house in the basement, I have like my whole Star Wars room in there, and the guy was like, oh, he's like a man after my own heart. And he's like he's showing my wife like his Star Wars tattoos and everything.
Oh,
and like
nice.
my wife is like showing like all these like 3D things that I'm making that are all Star Wars related. And he's like, the guy's like, oh man, I love this place.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah. So I'm sure, yeah, like you said, like I've people who come into your place that are like, either it's like work related to do something, and they come in here and they're like, oh man, like this is crazy.
Now going back, you went, you went from He-Man and then you jumped to Turtles. There was nothing in between for you? Like I went Real Ghostbusters, then Turtles. Then I remember like the Swamp Thing animated show came out. That was my jam. And I remember having like all the Swamp Thing toys and stuff. Like there was nothing in between there. You were just straight up He-Man.
I had some Ghostbusters because I really did like watching that Saturday mornings, the Real Ghostbusters. But I didn't get too far into the toy line. But what was nice is I had friends that had, like the full lineup of the Ghostbusters. I had mostly ghosts. So kind of a way that I remember playing was I would have like my Ghostbusters ghost, and I had like a Transformer Sharkticon, and as like my bad guys. Oh, and some muscle figures were on the bad guy side.
Oh, the M period U period. Yeah.
Yes. And then on my good guys, I think I had the last remaining He-Man guys with Turtles, and then also, do you remember the Burger King Kids Club? Where they had like little mascots and whatnot.
Wasn't there like Mac or something like that?
I had a toy of this character named Kidvid, and he had like a little vehicle that was like a remote.
Was that the guy that had like the Egon haircut, like blonde hair, and he had like maybe goggles on or something? I think I vaguely do remember that.
So he was one of my heroes too when I kind of mashed toy lines together, I guess.
Right.
Nice.
That's amazing.
Now, how long did you work at Disney World?
Just a little more than a semester. Not very long.
Just as general staff, or were you dressed up as Mickey?
I worked in attractions in Magic Kingdom, so I would work at different rides, shows, parade, crowd control, different things. So very like entry level positions. So once you do the college program once, then you can kind of reapply and do things that are more in line with your schooling, I guess. But I just did it once, and I didn't end up getting any credit for that semester because the classes I was attending down there, I ended up stopping going to those.
Okay.
But I did meet my wife there, so it kind of worked out good.
So wait, you met your wife while you were working there?
Yes, because she was interning just the same as I was.
And what was her capacity there? Same as you?
No, she actually she ended up getting put in a role that was the one thing she didn't want to do. She was working food service. So she didn't like the job part of it as much, but a lot more of it was just, meeting other kids from all over the country, or world, really doing the same thing as you, and just hanging out and having a good time. A college environment, I guess, without having to go to class all day.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, working there, did that cause you to be interested in collecting Disney?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So for a while I was pretty big into collecting different things with Disney. One of the rides I worked at was a Buzz Lightyear Space Ranger spin. So got a little bit of a spot picked out for some Buzz Lightyear and Toy Story stuff, I guess. So that's the Disney collecting. That's a pretty massive thing. So I still have some Disney things, but I'm not too hardcore into that right now. I've got, I think Motu and Star Wars are definitely ranked above them as far as collecting goes. But as far as, visiting the parks and things, that's something I think I'll always want to do that,
Right.
every couple of years, I guess.
I have still yet to ever visit Disney, and that's been I've never ever been, and hopefully with
real quick.
Hopefully with Anaheim next year, I'll at least get to do a Galaxy's Edge visit.
So especially if we can't all get 4-day passes and we have to pick and choose which days we're going to be at Celebration, you can bet we're going to be at the park some days too.
I don't think I'm going to be getting into Celebration, but that's why I was like, I'll just go to Anaheim for the vacation and maybe hopefully get to do one day to at least just see Galaxy's Edge. Like I probably won't have enough time to get in line for things, but
so if people are wondering what we're talking about, there's an actual Star Wars themed convention where it's 100% Star Wars called Star Wars Celebration.
It's been going on since 99 or 2000?
99? Yeah. April 99.
Yes.
Yeah, April 99 was the first one, and typically it's every couple of years. It's bounced around the U.S. a few times. It's been in Japan.
Germany.
It was in Germany. It was in England.
Did it go to England? I didn't know that.
Yeah, it did. It did. One year it was for England, and I've gone to 5 of them. So it's a lot of fun. I'll tell you that.
How many have you been to, Dale?
Same.
Wow, I'm a one and done with that.
All right, yeah, I feel I was just thinking about that. You brought up conventions earlier, and I didn't do any kind of conventions really growing up. I mean, granted, there wasn't a lot of options when we were kids either, but like there is now. But I knew about Celebration happening, but it just seemed, like it was the other side of the galaxy. Like I was, Luke on Tatooine, and I was never going to get to go to the academy.
Yeah.
You'll never make it to Tashi Station.
Yeah. So, paid attention to the first 4 celebrations online. And then C5 was my first convention experience.
That's my first one. First Star Wars convention was that one. But I've gone to conventions before that. So.
Yeah, and it was so eye-opening too. Just 4 days of solid Star Wars everywhere, and just being surrounded by tens of thousands of people with the same passion as you.
Yeah, that was the greatest part of it. Was just there was no hate, there was no infighting, there was nothing, no internet, there was no internet there. It was just a bunch of people congratulating each other on their awesome costumes or, collections or, it was just a good experience. Yeah. I have nothing negative really from that.
Right.
Yeah.
So I want to bring it back to your collection. I'm sorry.
Oh, come on, man.
Gotta focus. I mean, it's all about him. It's not about us.
It's always going to come back to Star Wars.
We'll always talk about that. Oh yeah, it will. It will always be like that. So I wanted to bring it back to your collection, and I wanted to know, out of all the stuff that you do have, what is your prize piece? It doesn't necessarily mean
most expensive,
like the most valuable, but like maybe that you hold dear, or that you personally hold value. Like I have things in my collection that are like, they're broken. They're I've had them since I was a kid.
It's like the question should be, if there's a fire, what's the one thing that you're going to grab?
Exactly. What are you grabbing? And then going back to it, it's like, what do you think is the most value out of your collection?
Sure. So I think the my loose vintage Motu figures, even though only a couple of them were my childhood ones, those have the most sentimental value to me. So I really like those. But as far as one thing to grab in a fire, I would have to either say my Classics Castle Grayskull or Big Millennium Falcon. So there's a lot to grab onto, I guess. But I think I think playing with those and my kids, that those, as far as like, that was the setting, that was the the play set that everything was going into, and it definitely different franchises. There's been plenty of Littlest Pet Shops and Shopkins have gone through those
Shopkins.
2 play sets, I guess.
Oh my God, Shopkins.
I think I would grab those kind of things because it's a big eye catcher as far as collection goes, but also it just makes me think of playtime with the kids versus the latest Marvel Legends figure of the TV show that we just watched 2 months ago. Not quite as sentimental. I appreciate having it that Hasbro made the figure. I think it's cool, but I think that side of the room would definitely burn while I'm grabbing things from this side of the room.
So I think the idea is we need to start telling collectors, you need to have a box just ready to go at any point in time that if something breaks out, you can just scoop it all in and run.
Yeah. Or even better this, right? You got to get your family trained into like, okay, in case there's a fire, your wife is going to grab this, and like your 2 kids are going to grab these, and daddy's going to grab the rest, and like everybody's going to be safe, So
yes. Don't worry about photo albums. There's enough pictures of us backed up online.
That's right. The goldfish, the family goldfish is nothing to you. That's right. That's what it is. Like, but everything else is all value.
I just thought of this. Is there an IP or something that you've wanted to collect that they don't really have anything out there? Like, is there something that you love and you're like, man, I really wish they made this, made something tangible out of this show or movie or whatever?
Totally. Yes. And I think we've talked about this offline before, but Willow.
Yes.
Willow did not perform at the box office. So the merchandise for it is so limited. So I've collected like the full line of the little tiny Tonka figures, these little 2-inch things with 0 articulation in them. But I would love a 6-inch line for that. So
you might get it with the new series.
Yeah, I was about to say that.
I'd hope so. I mean, I made my own 6-inch Mad Mardigan figure.
Oh, really?
There was I had a head sculpt that looked similar to Val Kilmer, and I molded some hair on there and found some different things from like Lord of the Rings lines and some other fantasy lines to make it look.
I was going to say, I was going to immediately jump to Lord of the Rings and say, okay, which Lord of the Rings figure did you? Yeah, so wait, you had just a head sculpt. Was it? It wasn't. What was the head from?
It was an alternate head.
He's on the move, folks.
From Masters of the Universe Classics, where it was a guy that the character from New Adventures had a helmet. So this was supposed to be like an alternate look if he ever wasn't wearing the helmet. Right. And they just made the face look a lot like Val Kilmer.
Oh, shoot. Yeah, I could see it.
I don't know how well that'll focus.
Nice.
Take a picture of that.
Yeah.
Grab that.
So I'm like, I'll finish it. So, but I would like an official version, not my homemade.
Now, how often do you make your custom? How many custom figures do you have, or how often?
I've probably finished. I don't know, less than 50. Right. I kind of got my start on it with Lord of the Rings with orcs, right. Because I felt like while Toy Biz used like 3D technology years and years before Hasbro was doing it with Black Series figures to have like a very accurate sculpt, I always felt like the orcs in the movies were like really dark, like they looked black versus the toys looked more red. So I kind of got my start in customizing by just painting orcs blacker than they originally were.
Now, is that just like just that wash or whatever you do to them? It's not you're not straight up painting them black. It's kind of like what is that?
Like they just watered down the black and just kind of put a wash on it to look kind of
exactly. Like a lot of things I just kind of dirty them up. There's another toy line I have called Mythic Legions where the armor just looks way too clean when I get it in. So I'm like, okay, I need put in some silver dings and dents here or some mud and things there. So I've done a lot of those. I've done some Motu characters that Classics never got to. And granted, the Classics toy line is probably my favorite toy line ever, because I mean it was going like really deep. There's like 200 figures in that line of all different Motu canons, I guess. But there was still some they didn't do. So there's a character called Eilina who was in one Filmation episode, and in the reboot, Eilina is going to be voiced by Kevin Smith's daughter.
We just talked about that last night, and Rich was stumped. He was like, I think that's a new character. So now that you say that, so she does have a background in the not the original series, but the what was it, New Adventures, you say?
No, it was a Filmation series.
Oh, she was in the Filmation. Yes. Oh, okay.
Yes, because it was, it was still where they had a moral at the end of that. And, it was kind of like the anti-drug use PSA at the end of it, I guess. So that's one, didn't have a figure. So I went and made my own for Eilina. And there's other things. What are they called? In the MCU, Thanos' little army, like his all his big bads that don't get a ton of screen time. Their characters look different in the movie versus the toys, because Hasbro was using like designs that were like way early in the production process. So like the toys came out close to when the movie came out, but they weren't accurate. So I'm like, okay, well, what can I do to kind of make them look more screen accurate, I guess?
So you're talking about like his minions in like Endgame. Like
Infinity War and Endgame.
I can't recite their names. I'm horrible with the MCU. But yeah, I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
Customizing has kind of been like a little, side hobby from just the straight action figure collecting, I guess.
Right.
And that's something also that my kids have gotten into, because they'll, my youngest she'll customize horses or something like that. So.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So obviously, since you have a pretty large collection, obviously you know people that are in the same boat as you are.
Yep.
And I remember us talking about how you're part of a fan club in your area called the Rocky Mountain Fan Force.
Yes.
And I was wondering if you could tell us about that. Kind of like, what you do. Are you some kind of like an officer for that, or how did you get into it, and what do you guys do? Do you guys do charity too, or anything? Like, what do you guys do?
Yeah. So Rocky Mountain Fan Force is the fan force for the Denver metro, Colorado area. So back in the day, on theforce.net, the idea with FanForce was to take the message board experience, the Jedi Council forums, and make that real life. So I think the rules, 20 years ago, were if you had 3 meetings of multiple people in person, then you could, kind of be like the founders and declare that you had your local FanForce chapter, I guess.
Oh, cool.
So, message boards, were huge in the early 2000s. I think once Facebook and some other things kind of got so big and other social media became bigger, kind of chipped away at message boards. A lot of websites had just, have them shut down for years now. But with FanForce, we still meet every single month. I think March of last year, right at the beginning of the pandemic, was the only month that we didn't meet in like the last decade.
Wow.
So, because we didn't really know, what to do, how to respond. But by the next month, we figured it out that, hey, let's just do Zoom. We can still have some face-to-face interaction, see what's going on with each other's families, see what's going on with each other's hobbies and collecting, kind of keep in touch with each other until this whole thing blows over. So
right.
this past month we had a in-person barbecue, and it was really nice to kind of see everyone in person again.
Yeah,
so.
I was going to say I kind of creeped on Facebook. I was looking at some pictures, and it does. You guys were at Red Rocks the one time you met up.
I've done Red Rocks.
That was probably what, a year. That was like 2 years ago, probably. I think it was an older picture,
you know
wasn't
what?
it? Or no, that was a year because you guys had the masks.
Yes, we did it last year. Because it was outside, and we had an in-person barbecue also outside last year. But other than that, it was pretty much Zoom. During the height of the pandemic, because you got to think about different people's comfort levels as far as showing up to like a monthly thing. They're kind of gauging, well, is it really that important for me to be there? Right. So yeah, it was very limited as far as in person last year. But we've done Red Rocks a few times. We've kind of been all over the city, I guess. And then this group is really nice as far as celebration goes. That's how I actually found out about the group, was back at C5. A lot of the people were helping with the bigger Fan Force party. I don't remember what hotel that was in, but it was a really big deal back in the day. You'd get Dave Filoni showing up, and the Robot Chicken guys, and the Force Cast back in the day, before it was RFR. Yep. So it was a fun nighttime activity to do at Celebration, and also it helped me meet a lot of these guys in person. So by the time the next Celebration came around a couple years later, I was a part of that group. Because I was like, hey, I want to know these people before going into Celebration, so that way I'm not just kind of going on my own or with only a couple people that I know.
How many people are active in the club?
Yeah,
and are they all like?
It looked like there was about 20 of you in that barbecue at least.
Yeah. Active, I would say, like attending most months. It isn't a big group. It's usually maybe a dozen people or so. Plus kids and things.
That's what looked awesome too, is the kids got involved too, because it's like, oh, I could, they can take their kids with, and it's a totally family friendly kind of thing. And the adults are talking about collecting toys and stuff. Yeah. Oh, this is awesome.
Yeah. What's funny is, like, from the guys that were a part of the group right early 2000 when it was starting, like, they had babies then that are now adults. Like, that's how long it's been going for, 20 years.
So I don't know if I missed this. I'm sorry if I did, but are you one of the founding members of your chapter?
No, definitely not. So It was started like around the time of the prequels, because attending the prequels with a group of your friends with some organization there, waiting in line, that was a really big thing, 20 years ago versus having assigned tickets you buy online now. But so no, I was not there for that whole decade. I didn't start up with the group until 2010. And then, when the sequels were coming out, it was nice to, go to those premieres and things with a bigger group of people. So with with episode 7, when that came out, we actually did some fundraising at the theater for some local groups, because it was still, a big thing where people were coming in and waiting in line. So it's been a few years since we were organized for the premieres. Now when we go to the premieres, it's just hanging out amongst ourselves and going in to watch the movie. But we still, one thing we do every year is Denver Comic Con, which then became Denver Pop Culture Con, which now is called Fan Expo Denver, or Denver Fan Expo.
And they were the ones that got involved with San Diego Comic Con, right? Were they the ones who got sued by San Diego?
I remember that story.
That's Fan X.
Oh, okay.
That was like Salt Lake City Comic Con.
Oh, Salt Lake, yeah.
So we haven't had the Comic Con moniker for a few years, but now the organization that was Denver Pop Culture Classroom, because it was being run as a nonprofit, they just sold out everything to this Fan Expo company that does a lot of cons around the country.
Yeah.
So they're actually going to have their first convention here. They're calling it special edition because it's only 3 days instead of 4. It's going to be Halloween weekend
Cool.
this year. So they've just started announcing some things for that. Like Shatner was their first guest they announced, and
nice.
I think they've announced a few others since then. But we're already in talks about having a table there, and we'll usually do that with the other local Star Wars groups. So like 501st, Rebel Legion, Mandalorian Mercs, Droid Builders, and then Fan Force. We're all in one like big Star Wars experience, I guess.
Now,
so we work with the other groups because we're really kind of like a gateway group. We don't have a focus on costuming. Our costume is the Star Wars T-shirt and jeans, so we're much more casual.
Now,
pretty standard. What are you talking about?
Coming into that, now that you bring it up, and that makes me think of a whole another lane of collecting, and especially in that venue, as far as like especially Star Wars fans. I don't know how it goes with other people, but are you do the swag, like the patches or pins, like
the trading
or anything like that? Do you guys like get involved with that? Because that was one of the biggest eye openers of my experience at Celebration. Me and my son, we made buttons so we could trade and like give them out to people. Just you see somebody and just be able to pass them something. Do you guys do that kind of thing? Like
we have in the past. We haven't for a couple of years as far as the swag goes. Having matching T-shirts, when we go to Celebration or to another con. But we've done patches with the shirts. We've done challenge coins even at one point. So it's kind of neat having some of that swag for your group, I guess. But we're definitely not into that as much, I think, as 501st. Like those guys are very organized about everything.
Yeah, I was very amazed with just the amount of opportunity. Like we came back with so many patches and pins and buttons, and I was like, oh my gosh, like this is crazy. Like, yeah, you go up, there's a raffle, all of a sudden I got this giant piece of a patch, but if you go to this other table, you can get the other little piece of the patch, and if you go to enough times and trade with somebody, you can make like a giant patch, all together. It was pretty awesome. But
there's a gal in my group that finished one of those. I think the last couple pieces she had to find online or something like that, but she assembled the whole thing and for patches and put it on the back of a denim jacket that's just covered with pins.
This is a woman after my own heart.
So I have while we're winding down, I have just 2 more questions. I don't know, Ian, do you have any more additional questions you want to ask them before I ask mine? Or
no, go ahead. Yeah, I'm flying by the seat of my pants here. Whatever's coming in my ADD brain.
Okay, all right. So pretty much while we're winding down, I wanted to see if you had any advice for somebody who is starting out collecting, something that you learned along the way, some advice that you got that you took to heart while you were growing up and your collection was getting more vast. What do you say to people who are just starting out?
Sure. Collect, like acquire things that you have a passion for and are going to bring you joy. But if it's something that's, been in a closet or a basement for years and you don't think you'll ever put it back out, just get rid of it. Someone else will appreciate it more than you. And don't collect to think that you're going to sell off this grand collection and it's going to put your kids through college or something, because probably things are, they might go up in price, the aftermarket might go up for a bit, but eventually it's going to drop back down and you're all going to be stuck with Beanie Babies or baseball cards. I collected baseball cards as a kid.
Everything after 1991 or 2 with baseball cards is like,
it's not worth the paper that they printed on.
Yeah, right. I did that. I went through boxes of cards, and I sat there and I shuffled and I got each team together, and then I found out it's like, oh yeah, these are not worth anything after 92. It's like,
well, Yeah, I don't want to tell you how many Jose Canseco baseball cards I have home here right now. So,
oh, geez,
nice. I was a Canseco fan as well.
obsessed.
I think I've still got a T-shirt with a picture of his face that's much bigger than my head on it somewhere. But
I will buy that shirt off you.
but yeah, the sports cards. And what's weird is, in the 80s and 90s, you could see the previous generations of sports cards had value to them, but then they were just so overproduced.
Right.
So it was fun collecting it to try to get your favorite players or guys on your home team and whatnot. But yeah, decade later, they're worthless. So don't think that your plastic collection is going to be worth any more than what you paid for it too.
Well,
Right,
and that,
yeah.
yeah, like you said, that the aftermarket, unless it's something high end like a Hot Toys or something that's exclusive to like a convention, it doesn't seem like anything. Like you said, it's not going to hold. You're not going to get rich off of it. If you like it, you like it, you get it.
Right.
So,
Yeah, and you've got to really have a focus. Like if you are trying to set out that you're going to be this great completionist like Steve Sansweet, and you're just going to get everything that's got the brand on it,
well,
you're not going to have any money. And with the sequels and anthology films for Star Wars, I love those movies, but I'm just not collecting them the way I did with the OT and Clone Wars and prequels and stuff.
I mean,
I've got a space. I've got this much space that I want for my Star Wars collection, and so I just don't feel like I need 4 and 6 inch versions of all these characters in the newer films. They're
8 variants of one
they're not
character.
as special to me that way.
Yeah. We have one last question, and this is the curveball of all the other ones that we have. And I wanted to thank you, Dale, for just being really cool about this and helping us out. And I just think that what you have it is unique to people, and every story is a little bit different. So I kind of want to ask you a question,
okay.
And this is regarding to. So what movie would you recommend to our listening audience that they should check out, or like your top one movie that you think that
the one you always maybe go back to?
Yeah, the go-to.
Your comfort food.
Well, it would be very too obvious to just say A New Hope, because everyone knows what A New Hope is all about. If you know anything about Star Wars, that's the one you've seen. And so I wouldn't say Episode 1, but I'd say something kind of in the same vein as Episode 1. So the 1987 live-action Masters of the Universe movie with Dolph Lundgren and Frank Langella.
All right, so I called it, Dan. I called it.
Yep. A canon film. A canon film, by the way.
Right. So if you know anything about the making of that, as a movie studio who didn't have money, they're financing one project with the slim rewards from the previous thing. They're trying to put out, 30 movies in a year, I think, something just ridiculous kind of things that wouldn't happen now. So it was this big venture between a broke film studio and Mattel, who only wanted to spend so much money on it. But then they also wanted something that was going to help them sell more toys. But it had to be family friendly. It couldn't have any violence at all.
Right. That movie doesn't seem like it's like lent to toys. It's a very dark looking movie. There's not a lot of color and like, oh, I want that guy as an action figure.
Yeah, I know that weird, disturbing like lizard thing. Whatever his name was, I can't remember.
Sarad.
Sarad, yes.
Yes.
Sarad.
So by the time that movie came out in theaters, sales of the toy line were just falling off a cliff. They kind of missed their window. And as far as, a modern version of that, it's been in development hell for about 20 years now. So whenever there's news about a new He-Man movie, I'm always just kind of like, I will believe it when I see photos from the set. Until that point, I don't care who's writing it, who's directing it. It doesn't matter because it's not going to happen.
Right.
Yeah, I remember.
So with that movie, I think a lot of people were disappointed in it, the same as Phantom Menace. Or I guess I don't really remember the reaction to the Transformers animated movie, where people went in with their expectation, and it was a little bit different look to it,
Right.
Not on par with, what Last Jedi was, where people had expectations and it was something else.
Well, you guys
it just didn't look like you thought it was going to.
Well, and like they couldn't do the special effects like Orko. That was like one thing they had to throw to the side because they couldn't figure out, I think, like how to do it at the time.
Well, they couldn't afford it.
Yeah, they couldn't afford it. But what's funny is you guys are, fans of the cartoon, the original filmation, and, the figures and all that. I remember the figures growing up, but I was attached to that movie, and I watched that movie over and over and over again. Yeah. I had a VHS, like some taped off a TV, and I watched that watched that movie more than I ever saw of the actual series. So I'm like I'm a weird case study in He-Man lore.
And the first DVD that I ever bought, that when DVDs came out, besides having to buy a porno for a friend of mine because he was too embarrassed.
We'll bleep that
out. It was Masters of the Universe was the other one. So.
Which is almost a adult film in itself with Dolph Lundgren's
It was
pecs.
A cheesy one too. It was like Playboy Playmates of like 1999 or something like that. But he was too embarrassed. It was like one of those like Saturday matinee or like before FYE whatever. I forget whatever. Anyways, but it was just like he was just too embarrassed to like go up and buy it, so I had to buy it for him. Master of the Universe is one of the first DVDs I ever bought, and everyone's like, "Why that movie?" And I'm like, "Why not that movie?"
Exactly.
I still have it too. I still have it in my collection, though. So,
nice.
Yeah. So, and do you have anything you want to promote? Like is there a website that we can check out for the Rocky Mountain Fan Force?
Sure. So the website is down at the moment. So I'll just plug our Facebook page. Just look for Rocky Mountain Fan Force on that. So whether you just want to follow us online, or if you're in the Colorado area and you want to see us in person, we are planning on being at Fan Expo in October in Denver. So the submission period for panels is still happening. So usually we do a trivia panel and we pack the room. In the past, we've gotten to have about 200 people in the room for our trivia panels.
Oh, wow.
So I'm hoping that'll continue on, even though the con is now owned by a new company. I'm really hoping that's going to happen. And even if not, I'm sure we'll be at a table with all the other Star Wars fan groups. Hopefully we're going to do another Make-A-Wish auction. So usually Saturday night of the con, we have an auction that supports the R2KT Foundation and Make-A-Wish, and been doing that for like a decade. So some of those things, it's a few months off, but I'm really hoping it all falls together. It'll still happen this year.
Nice. Excellent. Well, thank you very much. Once again, if you guys out there have any suggestions or have anyone that you want us to interview, just drop us an email. It's danandianpod@gmail.com. You can check out, if you look up Facebook, we have a Facebook page. I think it's, what is it? Still
Dan and Ian have questions.
Yeah, have questions, and we really appreciate it. Dale, thanks a lot, man. This has been great. It's something that we've been talking about for a long time, and I really appreciate that for you to take time out of your busy schedule to have us interview you.
Cool. Yeah. No, I had fun, and it's just fun talking about it. So
yeah, absolutely,
totally worth it.
Thanks for listening. If you have any questions or suggestions, write to us at danandianpod@gmail.com or search Dan and Ian Have Questions podcast on Facebook. Intro music provided by Ian Savage. Music produced and recorded by Shaun Vanek at Mercenary Studios. Thanks again for listening, and see you next time.